Welcome, bright souls. The real sparkle isn't in a fancy ring, but in the person who's weathered storms that were meant to sink them. I'm going to tell you something that might sting a little, but it's a truth I've seen play out time and time again. Scientists figured out that when a star implodes, it doesn't just disappear. It explodes outward as a supernova so intensely bright it can briefly outshine an entire galaxy. And that's exactly what's happened to you. Think about it. You crumbled. You felt the heat. You thought you were broken beyond repair. But instead of fading away, you came back even more brilliant, more magnetic, and with a power that surprised everyone, including yourself. Now suddenly you're the one everyone's talking about. Recognize this. Let's dive deeper, because this isn't just about getting attention, it's about understanding the incredible force you've become and how to navigate this new reality. Those same people who used to dismiss you with a roll of their eyes are now squinting, blinded by your radiance. The ones who vanished are now scrambling back like they've been running a desperate race. Let's be honest here, they don't want you. They want what your newfound glow offers them, like you're the only Wi-Fi signal in a dead zone. But here's the real kicker. Your allure isn't just about surface beauty. It's about the scars transformed into resilience, the agony molded into strength, and the quiet confidence you wear like an invisible crown they could never find on sale. This is why those ghosts of the past are suddenly so restless. They see the person they underestimated has blossomed into the person they desperately crave. Now hold on tight as we unpack this. Prepare to uncover the surprising reasons why people from your past are reappearing and how to protect yourself from their true intentions. First, and this is tough to swallow, they don't miss you. They miss the access. This is what people often won't admit, but it's the naked truth. When people resurface from the past, it's rarely because they've had some life-altering epiphany about how amazing you are. They miss how you made them feel what you freely gave and how easily they could take without giving much in return. You were more than just a person in their lives. You were their personal power source. You were the one who boosted their spirits, inflated their ego, and provided a safe space whenever they stumbled. Without realizing it, you were the generator that powered their life. And now that the electricity's out, they're desperate to reconnect. What's so ironic is how often people confuse this desperation with genuine affection or love. They'll shower you with compliments. They'll pretend they suddenly remember every tiny detail about you. They'll frame it as if they've been yearning for you. But if you look closely, what they're truly longing for is the comfort and the perks they once siphoned from you. They probably don't even remember the times you were struggling or when you quietly carried burdens that nobody else even noticed. They just remember how much easier their life was because you were in it. This is dangerous because access can masquerade as intimacy. If you're not vigilant, they'll try to frame their return as reconnection. But true reconnection demands honesty, accountability, and mutual effort. What they're offering lacks all of that. They're offering need disguised as affection. They're offering convenience disguised as care. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake their thirst for your energy as proof that they value you when really they just value the resources you possess. The blunt truth is they rarely miss the person. They miss the privileges that came with having that person in their life. That's why they can disappear so easily when you stop giving and reappear so quickly when they see your life flourishing without them. It was never about you. It was always about the access you provided. And now that you've locked that door, their desperation exposes the truth they never wanted you to see. Without you, they have to confront the emptiness they've been running from all along. Are you letting the same people exploit you again? Second, your glow isn't just beauty, it's evidence. That's why people can't stop staring, whispering, or trying to wiggle back into your life. They might think it's your new hairstyle, your skin, your clothes, or some external transformation you've undergone. But the truth is, what they're seeing has nothing to do with the surface. Your glow is the tangible proof of every storm you've weathered and survived. It's the quiet declaration that pain didn't bury you, betrayal didn't break you, and despair didn't dim your light. When you walk into a room, you carry the weight of healing. And that proof speaks volumes louder than any words you could ever utter. This glow isn't about perfection. It's not about having the latest trends or the perfect face. It's about the serenity on your skin, the sparkle in your eyes, and the unshakable confidence in your step. It's about the undeniable aura that tells the world you've been through trials that should have destroyed you, but instead you were transformed. That's what unsettles people. Because when they look at you, they're not just seeing someone attractive. They're seeing evidence that you possess something they couldn't destroy, something they couldn't steal, and something they can't fake. This evidence makes them uncomfortable. Your glow becomes a mirror reflecting their own hidden insecurities. While you radiate from healing, they're still grappling with unresolved wounds. Your joy serves as a stark reminder of their emptiness. Your peace highlights their inner chaos. And instead of celebrating your journey, many become obsessed because deep down they realize you've transformed everything meant to destroy you into fuel for your rise. You didn't just survive, you came back radiant. That's what true beauty is, not superficial attraction, but a transformation that seeps from your pores without you even trying. People from your past don't know how to handle that. They thought walking away from you would leave you bitter, resentful, and insignificant. Instead, you became brighter than ever. Your glow forces them to confront how they treated you when you had nothing. It forces them to acknowledge that the very person they overlooked is now living proof that fate doesn't waste pain. That's why your glow isn't just beauty. It's irrefutable evidence that you triumphed even when they bet against you. Are you radiating triumph or hiding your scars? Third, they're not coming back for love, they're coming back to rewrite history. This is the uncomfortable truth that most people avoid. When people from your past try to reconnect after you've evolved, it's rarely about suddenly realizing your inherent worth. It's about their own need to sanitize the narrative of how they treated you. See if they can get close to you again. They get to blur the details, reshape the story, and erase the parts that cast them in a negative light. This isn't about affection. It's about reputation. When they abandoned you at your lowest point, when they disregarded your aspirations, when they mocked your potential, they assumed the story was over. They thought you'd remain stagnant, that your life would validate their decision to walk away. But now the narrative has flipped. You've ascended, you've matured, and you're shining in a way that exposes their judgment as short-sighted. Suddenly, being associated with you holds immense value. Suddenly, knowing you adds credibility to their name. And to protect their ego, they need to rewrite the script so it appears they always believed in you. That's why their return feels so urgent. It's not driven by love. It's because time is revealing the truth and they're scrambling to catch up before it's too late. If they can sneak back into your inner circle, they can tell people they were there all along, that they never doubted you, that they always saw something special in you. It's damage control masquerading as romance or friendship. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake their guilt for genuine concern. The most bitter pill to swallow is this: they don't miss who you are. They miss what being near you now does for them. Your transformation has made them look foolish, and their way of protecting their pride is to recast history with themselves playing a more favorable role. But here's the thing, they can't erase what they did, and they can't undo the silence, the neglect, or the betrayal. The truth is etched into the timeline, and the fact that they're rushing back now doesn't prove love. It proves their desperate attempt to appear innocent in a story where they played the villain. Are you allowing them to rewrite your story? Fourth, your transformation is a mirror they can't escape. And that's precisely why your presence makes so many people uneasy. When they look at you now, they're not just seeing your growth, your radiance, or your success. They're seeing the version of themselves they abandoned. You became living proof of what discipline, faith, and resilience can achieve, while they remain trapped in patterns of excuses and half-hearted commitments. Your transformation forces them to confront the uncomfortable truth that the gap between who they are and who they could have been is not luck. It's a consequence of their choices. Every time they see you, they're reminded of the moments they chose comfort over growth, pride over humility, shortcuts over dedication. You embody the very path they could have taken, but they chose to walk away from it. And now, instead of celebrating your achievement, they feel threatened, because celebrating you would mean admitting where they went wrong. So they fluctuate between admiration and resentment, trapped in the tension of seeing their wasted potential reflected back at them through your evolution. Your life exposes their procrastination. It exposes the dreams they abandoned, the talent they buried, and the discipline they avoided. You don't even have to say a word. Your transformation alone preaches a sermon they can't ignore. And that's why they act distant, dismissive, or even sarcastic about your growth. It's easier to diminish you than to face the fact that you've become the embodiment of their negligence. But the truth is, their discomfort isn't about you. It's about them. You didn't steal their opportunities. You didn't block their path. You simply did the work, endured the journey, and stayed committed. Your existence is a mirror reflecting what they could have become if they had been willing to break their own cycles. To them, you're not just a person. They see you as their unfinished assignment, the chapter of their life they'll always regret leaving blank. And no matter how hard they try to escape it, that mirror doesn't disappear. Because every step you take forward, every victory you achieve, and every glow you radiate reminds them that the distance between who they are and who they aspired to be is not fate. It's the sum of their choices, and now they can't escape it. Does your success intimidate those around you? Fifth, the same voices that labeled you ordinary now whisper about your enigma. That's the irony of being chosen. When they thought you were ordinary, they had no qualms about mocking you, dismissing you, or treating you as if you were invisible. They didn't just overlook you. They publicly diminished you, making sure everyone knew they didn't think much of you. At that time, your silence, your struggles, and your hidden growth were invisible to them, so they simply wrote you off as insignificant. But now that the roles have reversed, those same voices can't stop talking. Only this time their tone is hushed, curious, and tinged with obsession. What changed? Not you. You've always been who you are. What changed is the unveiling. The enigma they now whisper about is the part of you that was always there but couldn't be seen until its time. They thought they had you figured out, boxed in, defined by their shallow judgment. Now they're rattled because they're realizing you're not someone who can be summed up in a sentence or dismissed with an insult. You possess depths they never had the patience or the insight to see. And because they can't pinpoint how you became who you are, they obsess. That's what fuels the whispering, the enigma of your transformation. They can't trace the blueprint. They can't identify the source, and they can't replicate the process. They see the results, but not the journey. They see the glow, but not the wilderness you endured. And in that gap between what they see and what they can't explain, obsession flourishes. What makes it even more unsettling for them is control, or rather the lack of it. When they dismissed you, they felt in control. They could define you however they wanted, and nobody questioned it. Now the power has shifted. You've become someone they can't label, can't predict, and can't contain. And that lack of control transforms into a strange form of reverence. They might not say it out loud, but they secretly worship what they once belittled because deep down they know they were wrong. The same voices that laughed at you are now the same ones whispering in awe. They diminished you when you were rising, and now they revere you because your rise has proven unstoppable. Their whispers are the soundtrack of their regret. Are you embracing your own enigma? Sixth, desire has transformed into jealousy wearing a mask. This is why their sudden interest feels insincere. At first glance, it seems flattering compliments, kind words, and admiration pouring out as if they finally see you. But if you listen closely, there's something hollow underneath. Their desire is no longer genuine. It's envy disguised in sweet words. They don't just want to be close to you. They want to dissect you, replicate you, and steal the secret formula that made you shine the way you do. That's the danger of envy. It never shows up in its true form. It disguises itself as attraction, support, or even admiration. But the motive isn't to uplift you. The motive is to consume, to take, and to replicate what can't be replicated. You've become a living paradox to them, someone they want to be near, but also someone they can't stand to see shine without them. So they linger not because of love, but because of calculation. They're studying you like an unsolved puzzle. And the deeper truth is this: they don't want you. If they wanted you, they would have valued you when you had nothing to prove. They would have invested in you before the glow, before the breakthroughs, before your transformation became undeniable. What they want now is access to the formula. They see your strength, your resilience, your aura, and they're desperate to figure out how you built it. They want the process without the pain, the wisdom without the scars, the beauty without the battles. But life doesn't work that way. What you possess isn't transferable, it's earned. That's why no matter how close they try to get, they can never truly replicate what you are. They can imitate your style, mimic your words, and even try to emulate your presence, but it will always fall short because the essence isn't on the surface. The essence is in what you survived, and that's the part they'll never be able to fake. So don't be distracted by flattery. Don't let the sudden surge of attention blind you. Desire rooted in envy is dangerous. It's hunger disguised as affection. And the truth is, they don't want to love you, they want to be you. But since that's impossible, their longing will inevitably sour into jealousy no matter how cleverly they try to mask it. Are you recognizing the envy in their admiration? Seventh, they don't remember you. They remember the benefits. This is what stings when people from the past try to circle back. They'll say they miss you. They'll act like they've been nostalgic about the good old days, but what they're really remembering is how good they had it when you were around. They don't crave your presence, your essence, or your soul. What they're chasing is the ease, the comfort, and the elevation they experienced by being connected to you. You were more than just a person in their life. You were a mirror that made them feel better about themselves. You were the one who gave them laughter when they felt empty, encouragement when they felt weak, and a safety net when they made reckless choices. They felt valuable because you treated them with value. They felt capable because you reminded them they could achieve more. You carried weight they couldn't carry, and you made their world softer, safer, and easier to navigate. When they say they miss you, it's not really you. It's the version of themselves that existed only because you were investing in them. That's why when you step away, there's a void they can't fill. It's not about losing a friend, lover, or companion. It's about losing the privileges that came with having you in their corner. And because they can't articulate that honestly, they frame it as missing you. But if you stripped away the benefits, the favors, the listening ear, the late-night rescues, the unwavering support, what exactly would be left for them to long for? For many of them, the answer is nothing. The truth is, some people never valued you. They valued what you gave them access to, and when that access ended, so did their sense of comfort. That's why their memory feels selective. They don't remember your struggles, your sacrifices, or your loneliness. They remember the parts that made them feel good. It was never about your essence. It was about their convenience. So when they rush back now, don't mistake their words for genuine affection. What they're chasing isn't you. It's the benefits of being near you. And once you understand that, you'll never confuse nostalgia with love again. Because real love values the person. Everything else is just people missing the perks. Are you seeing their actions or just hearing their words? Eighth, they want to taste the fire without surviving the flames. That's the danger of the attention you're receiving now. On the surface, people see your glow, your confidence, your presence, and they crave it. They mistake it for something they can simply reach out and grab as if it's a gift meant to be easily handed over. But what they don't grasp is that the very thing they find attractive about you didn't come cheaply. It was forged through trials, heartbreak, betrayal, setbacks, and countless moments when giving up seemed easier than moving forward. Your allure isn't just physical, it's spiritual fire. It's the kind of energy that can't be purchased, copied, or imitated because it stems from endurance. That fire inside you carries the weight of survival, the proof of transformation, and the power of lessons that only scars could teach. And that's what makes it magnetic, because deep down people are drawn to what they can't replicate. They see the shine, but they don't want the suffering. They want the product without the process. The truth is, many of them wouldn't last through a fraction of the storms you've weathered. They wouldn't survive the nights you had to cry yourself back to strength, the betrayals that almost stole your hope, or the seasons when you had to rebuild from nothing. They want to taste the fire but skip the flames that birthed it, and that's why their desire for you is shallow. They're not seeking to understand your journey, they're seeking to consume your glow. But fire doesn't work that way. It can warm, but it can also burn. And people who think they can simply touch your flame without respecting the process that created it will inevitably get scorched. That's why some people who rush back into your life end up resenting you instead of cherishing you, because what they wanted was easy access, and what they got was a reminder that true fire demands sacrifice. Your glow is sacred because it came at a price. It's not a trophy for anyone to seize. It's the evidence of survival in alignment with something greater than yourself. And until they're willing to endure their own flames, all they'll ever do is circle around your fire, wanting it, craving it, but never truly ready to carry what it takes to burn this brightly. Are you guarding your fire from those who haven't earned it? Ninth, your distance has made you priceless. That's the irony they'll never admit. When you were readily available, accessible, and giving without hesitation, they treated you as if you were commonplace. They didn't recognize the weight of your presence, the strength of your support, or the peace you brought into their lives. They assumed you'd always be there, always answering the calls, always picking up the pieces, always showing up no matter how little they reciprocated. Familiarity clouded their judgment. They mistook your reliability for weakness and your generosity for something they were entitled to. But once you established distance, everything shifted. Suddenly, the same energy they dismissed became the very thing they crave. The comfort they took for granted now feels like a luxury, and the silence they once relished when they pushed you away now feels like suffocation. In your absence, they're forced to measure the true value of what you were to them, and the truth hits hard. They never just lost you. They lost access to a rare presence that enriched their lives in ways they couldn't acknowledge. Scarcity has a way of revealing worth. It's not that your value suddenly skyrocketed. It's that their clouded vision finally cleared. The truth is, you were always priceless, but they lacked the maturity, humility, or spiritual depth to recognize it. Only when the distance made them yearn for what they once overlooked did reality sink in, and the reality is brutal. They didn't just lose a person. They lost access to a sanctuary, a lifeline, a source of grounding that they may never find again. Now they linger at the edges, trying to figure out how to reclaim what they squandered. But the irony is, your distance isn't a punishment. It's protection. It's the boundary that demonstrates you no longer sell yourself short. And the harder it is to reach you, the clearer it becomes to them that they can't simply walk in and out of your life as they please. Your distance has made you priceless, not because you changed, but because they finally woke up to the reality that you were never replaceable. The loss is theirs, the clarity is theirs, and the truth is permanent. Some people only appreciate treasure after it's been locked away. Have you set the boundaries that prove your worth? 10th, they want to be seen next to you, not for you. This is the hidden motive behind a lot of the sudden attention you're receiving. To them, your presence has become a form of currency. Being associated with you even superficially enhances their image. It's not about genuinely caring for you or valuing your soul. It's about what standing next to you says about them. You've become a kind of living endorsement they can present to the world, proof that they were always connected to greatness, even if the truth is they ignored, dismissed, or betrayed you while you were building in silence. That's why their behavior feels shallow. They don't want intimacy, accountability, or real connection. They want association. They want the photo, the story, the subtle brag that they know you. Because in their world, proximity to your glow feels like a shortcut to respect they couldn't earn on their own. Your transformation has turned you into a status symbol, and using your name or presence is their way of masking the emptiness of their own choices. But the reality is, being next to you and truly knowing you are two vastly different things. They don't want the responsibility that comes with being in your life. They don't want the effort of safeguarding your peace, supporting your mission, or standing by you when it costs them something. They just want the applause, the attention, and the credibility that comes from being seen in your orbit. It's not about love, it's about leverage. And here's the cruel irony. Many of these same people would have sworn you weren't worth much just a short time ago. They might have laughed at your struggles, belittled your dreams, or walked away when you needed them most. But now, with the spotlight on you, their tone has changed, not because they've changed on the inside, but because they see what you've become in the eyes of others. They want to ride the wave without ever having weathered the storm that created it. You've outgrown being someone's accessory, someone's stepping stone, or someone's flex. If they can't see you for you beyond the glow, beyond the attention, beyond public perception, then their presence is nothing more than parasitic. And the truth is, you've risen too high to let yourself be worn like jewelry by people who never truly valued your soul. Are you an icon to be admired or a stepping stone to be used? 11th, they are attempting to bypass accountability by reuniting. This is one of the most insidious traps that appears when people from your past suddenly want back in. They don't want to sit with the discomfort of their betrayal. They don't want to acknowledge the disrespect, the neglect, or the pain they caused. Facing the truth would mean admitting they were wrong. And for people whose pride runs deeper than their conscience, that's too heavy a burden to bear. So instead, they use reunion as a shortcut. They act as if showing up again is enough to erase history, as if being near you now magically negates what they did then. But reunion without accountability is not healing. It's manipulation. It's their attempt to rewrite the past without ever repairing it. They think that if they can laugh with you again, stand next to you again, or get you to accept them in the present, then the old wounds don't matter anymore. In their mind, skipping the apology and skipping the responsibility shields them from shame. What they fail to realize is that by avoiding accountability, they're only proving they're not truly ready for your presence. This is why their return often feels hollow. Something is missing beneath the surface gestures, the kind words, and the sudden care. What's missing is truth. What's missing is ownership. Without that, the reunion is just a performance, a way for them to soothe their guilt without doing the actual work of repair. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake their eagerness to be near you again as love, when in reality it's simply self-preservation. Here's the unvarnished truth. People who can't apologize, who can't admit where they went wrong, and who can't look you in the eye and own their actions are not coming back for you. They're coming back for themselves. They want relief from guilt, not reconciliation. They want redemption without cost, forgiveness witut accountability, and access without change. But real reconciliation demands truth. It demands humility. It demands the courage to say, I hurt you and I take responsibility. Anything less than that is not a reunion. It's a repeat cycle waiting to happen, and you've come too far, healed too much, and grown too deeply to let anyone bypass accountability just to soothe their conscience. Are you demanding accountability or settling for empty gestures? 12th, you carry what they can't manufacture. That's the very thing that keeps them restless around you. In a world where nearly everything can be bought, copied, or faked, you stand out as something untouchable. People can alter their appearance with surgery, amass wealth, or chase fame for attention. But none of that creates what you have. What you possess is unteachable. It's born from genuine scars, protection, and an aura that pain itself etched into you. That kind of presence can't be replicated because it wasn't built in comfort. It was forged in fire. That's why people who try to imitate you always fall short. They can emulate your style, parrot your words, or even mimic the surface-level details of your life, but something in the atmosphere still feels off. Because what you carry isn't skin deep, it's soul deep. It's the weight of everything you've endured, the resilience you had to cultivate in silence, the wisdom you gained through loss, and the light that emerged only after walking through darkness. Those ingredients can't be packaged or performed. They're lived, and that's why no imitation ever has the same impact. It's also why obsession grows. People aren't just fascinated by you, they're unsettled by you. They can't comprehend how you transformed wounds into wisdom, betrayal into strength, or rejection into power. They want the results, but they don't want the suffering that birthed them. And so their admiration quickly morphs into envy, because deep down they know there's no shortcut to becoming what you've become. Money can't buy scars that transform into strength. Surgery can't implant peace that emanates from the soul. Fame can't fabricate the kind of respect that only comes from surviving battles most people would have crumbled under. You are living proof that some things can't be manufactured no matter how hard people try. And that's why you remain both admired and misunderstood. To some, you are a mystery they long to solve. To others, you are a mirror that exposes what they lack. But to all, you are undeniable proof that authenticity, pain, and a power create a glow no factory, no operating table, and no stage can ever produce. You don't just carry what they can't manufacture. You are what they can't manufacture. Are you living an authentic story or a staged show? 13th, their return isn't about love, it's about timing. And in this case, timing isn't divine alignment, it's strategic convenience. When you were building in silence, when your name was unknown, when your worth was still hidden beneath layers of struggle, they had no urgency to claim you. They dismissed you, delayed you, or discarded you because in their eyes you weren't yet valuable enough to be chosen. Now that the spotlight is on you, now that your glow is undeniable, they appear out of nowhere, acting as if the universe has orchestrated their return at the perfect moment. But this isn't love, it's opportunism masquerading as nostalgia. What they call fate is actually calculation. They see the doors opening for you. They see the respect you now command. They see how your presence makes others gravitate toward you, and suddenly the memory of you is resurrected, not because their heart has been moved, but because their mind has calculated the advantages of being near you. Love is selfless. It gives without expecting anything in return, but opportunism is selfish. It takes under the guise of affection, and that's what their return reveals. The danger lies in the subtlety. They won't admit they're back for personal gain. Instead, they'll use memories as bait. Remember when we used to? They'll cloak their re-entry with familiarity to make you lower your defenses. But if you peel back the nostalgia, what remains is someone who ignored your struggle, dismissed your growth, and now wants to lay claim to the finished product. They're not in awe of who you are. They're hungry for what your presence now provides. If it were truly about love, they would have cherished you before the world validated you. They would have shown up when you had nothing but potential, when your dreams were ridiculed rather than celebrated, when your journey looked like failure rather than favor. That's what distinguishes genuine connection from disguised opportunism. So don't mistake their timing for alignment. Alignment means God placed them in your path for a purpose. Opportunism means they place themselves back in your path for personal profit. And the truth is, most people from the past don't want you. They want the access your present offers. Their return isn't love, it's leverage, and you'd be wise to recognize the difference. Are you seeing divine purpose or selfish opportunism? 14th, your allure is a warning, not an invitation. It's not a signal for them to try again. It's a divine sign that they've forfeited their chance. A divine power didn't refine you, elevate you, and crown you with glory so that the same hands that mishandled you before could come back and mishandle you again. That power made you radiant as living proof of might, evidence that what they discarded didn't just survive, it flourished. But here's the truth they don't want to confront. Your glow isn't for their consumption. It's a reminder that they misread the blueprint and lost the privilege of being part of the final design. This is where the confusion begins for them. They see your allure and assume it's an open door. But the divine source sees the same allure and declares it off limits. To them, you're a temptation. To the divine, your sacred property, shielded, marked, and heavily guarded. That's why their pursuit feels frustrating. They chase after you with the same entitlement they had in the past, but now they're met with resistance, delays, and closed doors. What they don't understand is that your beauty, your confidence, your glow was never meant to lure them back. It was meant to warn them off. There's also a brutal honesty here. Your allure exposes their arrogance. They think they're strong enough to handle you now, but what they're really pursuing is the validation of their own worth. Every compliment, every attempt to reconnect is rooted in the hope that they can rewrite history. But the truth is, history has already been written, and they're no longer part of the script. Your radiance isn't the universe dangling you like bait. It's a proclamation of power, and with that proclamation comes a warning. Do not touch what is under protection. That's why no matter how much they crave you, no matter how meticulously they plan, they can't cross that line, because your glow isn't just about attraction. It's about a divine connection. You belong to purpose, not to their ego, and the sooner they realize it, the sooner they'll understand that what they see as an invitation is actually a boundary they dare not cross. Is your strength a signal or a shield? The story of your radiance, your rise, and your untouchable presence isn't just about beauty or charm. It's about survival, transformation, and a higher purpose. Every whisper, every glance, every attempt from the past to pull you back is a reflection of what they lost, what they never earned, and what they can never recreate. They don't miss you. They miss the access, the comfort, the privileges that came with your presence. They want your fire without enduring the flames, your success without enduring the struggle, your light without undergoing the lessons that shaped it. Every return, every compliment, every sudden spark of interest isn't love. It's opportunism, envy, or the desperate attempt to rewrite history without accountability. You've become a mirror they can't escape, a warning they can't ignore, and a force they can't replicate. Your radiance is sacred proof of survival and evidence of a divine plan in motion. You carry what they can't copy. You shine where they only stumble, and your distance has made you priceless. They may whisper about your enigma, envy your transformation, or crave association with your presence, but none of it alters the truth. You are untouchable, under protection, and chosen. This is the era where you stand fully in your power, no longer available to the careless, no longer defined by their timeline, and no longer swayed by shallow desire. Your glow is a testament that survival breeds strength, trials breed beauty, and a path forward cannot be stolen. Those who underestimated you are now faced with the undeniable truth that what they rejected is now untouchable. Your rise is both a revelation and a warning, and your story proves that some things, some people simply are not for everyone. They are for a destiny. Embrace your worth, guard your fire, and let the world watch in awe as you navigate life on your own terms, radiant, untouchable, and unstoppable. You are proof that what is meant to thrive cannot be hindered, and what is power-given cannot be taken. Now let's carry this energy forward. Take a moment to reflect on how these truths resonate with you, and then take action. Because knowledge without action changes nothing. If you found clarity or empowerment in this message, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Pass it on. Subscribe to the channel to stay connected to powerful truths that illuminate your worth and safeguard your glow. Hit that like button to affirm that you're aligned with growth and transformation. Leave a comment sharing your own experiences, insights, or breakthroughs so others can feel seen, understood, and inspired. And share this with someone who needs to be reminded of their own untouchable power. Every click, every comment, and every share isn't just passive engagement. It's an active step toward embodying the life you were destined to live. Your rise is unstoppable, and by spreading this message, you're helping others recognize. Welcome, beloved trailblazers. The most dangerous person in any story is the one everyone underestimates. Let that truth resonate within you. History has been forged, not by the ostentatious, the flamboyant, or the clamorous, but by the unnoticed, the silent architects, the ones whose arrival was perceived only when their impact was undeniable. In warfare, espionage, commerce, even personal relationships, the true disruptors often dwell in plain sight, dismissed as ordinary until they orchestrate a transformation that reshapes the entire landscape. And precisely that scenario is unfolding here now. Somewhere within the labyrinthine corridors of their machinations, they're grappling with a disconcerting realization, revisiting every interaction with you, and experiencing an almost farcical dread as they mutter, "Wait, they were the key all along." It's dawning on them with the force of revelation, an undeniable truth addressed directly to them. Here's an insightful observation for you. Studies in the realm of social psychology reveal a prevalent human inclination to misinterpret genuine humility as a deficit of competence. This implies that while you maintained your composure, they categorized you as insignificant. Yet far from being harmless, you were assiduously accumulating expertise, nurturing connections, and cultivating insight until you emerged as the pivotal element required to complete the grand design. Thus, the tables have turned. The supporting character in their narrative has ascended to the leading role. The name they scarcely recalled now dominates their thoughts. And the most agonizing aspect, your emergence into this pivotal moment was not a sudden occurrence. You have been present all along, observing, absorbing, and quietly maneuvering while they disregarded your potential as a matter of habit. Prepare yourselves, because in the ensuing moments we will dissect the reasons behind their profound dismay at the revelation of your significance and why they may never fully recover from the ramifications of this altered reality. Number 1, they misinterpreted your trials as insignificance. For a prolonged period, they witnessed your navigation through challenging circumstances and concluded that you warranted scant attention. In their limited perspective, an individual of genuine potential would not encounter such persistent obstacles merely to sustain themselves. They scrutinized your adversities and construed them as evidence of weakness, misfortune, or an inherent inadequacy for any consequential endeavor. What they failed to comprehend was that your tribulations were not indicative of failure. Rather, they constituted the very crucible that forged you into an unstoppable force. While they marginalized you, you acquired skills that their sheltered existence rendered unnecessary. You cultivated patience during prolonged periods of closed doors. You honed your strategic acumen amid scarcity of resources. You mastered the art of improvisation when confronted with unforeseen deviations. And all of this metamorphosed into an imperceptible advantage indiscernible to them due to their preoccupation with superficial judgments. Ironically, they conflated a delayed spotlight with an absence of intrinsic potential. They erroneously equated success with uninterrupted triumph and effortless progression. However, the individuals who endure are those capable of weathering storms without losing sight of their objectives. Your unwavering commitment to persevering despite adversity did not diminish your significance. It transformed you into a formidable entity. They failed to grasp that your perceived setbacks were in reality preparing you to flourish in environments that would overwhelm most. You evolved into an individual capable of navigating chaos with unwavering precision. And because your triumphs transpired behind the scenes, they underestimated the extent of your development. Now the dynamic has shifted. The very resilience you cultivated during those challenging periods is the foundation of your strength, while some who once appeared invulnerable are now floundering. They possessed comfort, you possessed resilience, and resilience invariably endures. The realization confronting them now is elementary yet devastating. What they dismissed as irrelevance was in fact preparation. The battle they believed would break you was in reality constructing you. And now that you have attained the position they deemed unattainable, they must confront the reality of their misjudgment, a reality that cannot be undone. Number 2, their preoccupation became your training ground. They were so consumed by competing with one another that you barely registered on their radar. Their attention was fixated on their personal rivalries, their individual insecurities, their relentless pursuit of superiority. In their scramble to assert themselves, they utterly neglected you, and that oversight constituted the most consequential error they could commit. While their focus was scattered, yours remained laser-focused. You were not distracted by ego-driven skirmishes or trivial one-upmanship. You were diligently honing your skills, acquiring knowledge of the game, and quietly accruing advantages. This afforded you an invaluable opportunity, the space and time to mature without intrusion. They did not scrutinize your actions, thus remaining ignorant of your methods and thought processes. They failed to invest the time to comprehend your approach or your mindset because they were convinced you were an inconsequential variable. That blind spot served as your training ground. Every stride you took, every piece of knowledge you absorbed, every connection you cultivated transpired under the veil of their inattention. Competition breeds vulnerability. It renders individuals predictable, careless, and myopic as their primary focus shifts to outperforming each other rather than safeguarding the collective objective. That is where you seized your opportunity. You possessed the autonomy to master skills they did not even recognize as necessary. You familiarized yourself with the intricacies of the system while they preoccupied themselves with projecting an image of competence within it. You identified the loopholes, discerned the patterns, and recognized the subtle nuances that ultimately determine success. Best of all, because they never perceived you as a threat, they neglected to erect any defenses against you. They established barriers for those they feared and devised strategies for those they envied. But in your case, they left the door wide open. Consequently, when your moment arrived, you did not need to overcome resistance. You simply entered and assumed your rightful position. The reality is now dawning on them. The person they disregarded proved to be the one they should have been observing all along, and the sting is amplified by the impossibility of rewriting history. They cannot undo the years squandered in fighting futile battles while you transformed yourself into the individual capable of stepping in and assuming leadership without apparent exertion. Number 3, you surpassed those who initially overshadowed you, the individuals they once elevated to pedestals, the ones who appeared invincible and destined for triumph, have already receded into obscurity. Their brilliance burned intensely for a brief period, but it proved unsustainable. Their momentum derived from accolades, from perpetual validation, from an insatiable desire for the limelight. And when that attention waned, so did their fortitude. Meanwhile, you persisted in your endeavors, continuing to build and to persevere even when unobserved. You did not require external affirmation to sustain your efforts, which is why you outlasted them. Your journey was not a race against them. You were simply constructed for endurance. They approached their paths like sprinters, swift, flamboyant, but incapable of maintaining the pace. You, on the other hand, mastered the art of navigating setbacks, delays, and periods of apparent stagnation. You cultivated an internal reservoir of motivation that did not deplete merely because conditions were unfavorable. That level of resilience is uncommon, and it is precisely what distinguishes those who generate ephemeral acclaim from those who leave an indelible mark for generations. They utilized their opportunities as stages for performance. You utilized yours as foundational elements. Each challenge you confronted added another layer to your resilience. Each incremental advancement represented an investment in a grander vision. While they pursued recognition, you prepared for longevity. Consequently, when the initial surge of enthusiasm surrounding them dissipated, they were left without a solid foundation. You conversely possessed a foundation so robust that time and adversity could not undermine it. What is resonating with them now is not merely the fact that you endure. It is the fact that you are stronger than ever. You did not simply survive. You continued to advance while they faltered. They recall their unwavering conviction that you would never catch up, and now they must witness your ascent without having adhered to their established protocols. It is a reality they cannot distort, deny, or control, because the irrefutable proof lies in your continued presence and their relative absence. Outlasting them was not about defeating them at their own game. It was about participating in an entirely different endeavor, one predicated not on instantaneous victories, but on unwavering consistency. And now they are confronted with the unsettling truth. The person they anticipated would fade into oblivion is the only one still in contention, and there is no possibility of catching up to you now. Number 4, you were not competing. You were positioning yourself. They assumed you were engaged in the same pursuit. They measured your progress against theirs, secretly hoping to surpass you. In their perception, every action you undertook contributed to an imperceptible scoreboard where they meticulously tracked who held the lead. But in reality, you were not even participating in that competition. Your trajectory was not about dominating them. It was about aligning yourself with a purpose greater than their limited conception of success. Their superficial accolades, their fleeting applause, their transient victories. None of it was relevant to the mission you were undertaking. While they were fixated on securing immediate gains, you concentrated on constructing something immune to the allure of fleeting trends, promotions, or public commendation. You remained impervious to the distractions of comparison because you understood that your role was not to compete but to prepare. Every action you executed possessed weight and intention, even if it appeared insignificant to them. That is why their triumphs and defeats never affected you. Their scoreboard was inconsequential to your endeavor. They failed to recognize that positioning differs from competing. Competing entails striving to outperform another within the same arena. Positioning entails discerning your destined location and aligning yourself with the optimal timing, resources, and connections to facilitate your arrival. Sometimes that necessitates slower progress. Sometimes it involves allowing others to prevail in battles you were not destined to fight. From their perspective, it appeared as though you were conceding. In actuality, it was strategic patience. Now they are beginning to recognize the disparity. Their victories, while ostentatious, possessed limited longevity. The doors they so vehemently fought to open led to chambers that eventually emptied. Meanwhile, you have entered a realm they cannot touch, not because you surpassed them, but because you never aspired to reach their destination. What stings them most is the realization that all their energy expended in attempting to defeat you was futile because you were traversing a path beyond their comprehension. Your alignment with your purpose has positioned you in a realm impervious to competitive pressures and unattainable through mere ambition. And now that you have arrived, they cannot ignore the fact that you were never lagging. You were simply being positioned all along. Number 5, they failed to comprehend you, leading to misinterpretations. They struggled to decipher your actions, inducing unease. Individuals similar to them are accustomed to rapidly assessing others, categorizing them, and determining the appropriate course of action. However, you provided them with insufficient data to work with. You did not adhere to predictable patterns of behavior. You did not openly broadcast every triumph, elucidate every decision, or strive to substantiate your worth. And because you did not visibly pursue approval in the manner they did, they concluded that you must lack competence. In their perception, visibility equates to value. If you were not fervently pursuing every opportunity or striving for recognition, you must be unprepared, disconnected, or insignificant. What they failed to recognize was that you operated according to an entirely different paradigm. You did not require constant affirmation to validate your progress because your focus was not directed toward the crowd. It was directed toward your plan. You understood that the most vocal individual in a room is often the least strategic, and you had no desire to generate noise when you could instead cultivate precision. The reality is that while they were preoccupied with satisfying their need for recognition, you were executing maneuvers beyond their conceptual framework. You were not reacting to prevailing trends, you were preparing for outcomes they did not even deem possible. Every action you undertook was calculated to contribute to a larger design, one that did not necessitate their endorsement or even their comprehension. Their misinterpretation of you proved advantageous. By underestimating you, they granted you the latitude to operate without interference. They did not prepare for your emergence. They did not defend against your advances, and they failed to anticipate your arrival. Consequently, when the results of your strategy materialized, they were utterly unprepared. Now they recognized that the indicators were present all along: the quiet assurance, the unwavering consistency, the refusal to succumb to transient enthusiasms. But because you did not adhere to their established blueprint for success, they conflated your silence with ignorance. That oversight cost them more than they will ever acknowledge, because by the time they realized you were not ignorant, you had already progressed too far for them to overtake you. Number 6, your consistency served as silent testimony. They failed to recognize the value of the incremental, consistent steps you were taking because they were preoccupied with grand gestures and dramatic victories. In their estimation, success revolved around moments that elicited applause, public displays that proclaimed, "Observe me." They believed that the only means of proving oneself was through explosive breakthroughs witnessed by all. But while they pursued applause, you demonstrated your commitment quietly, consistently, without fanfare, thereby constructing something they could not rival: an impeccable record. Consistency lacks allure, which is why they disregarded it. It does not generate headlines. It does not command instantaneous attention. It is a form of labor that appears imperceptible until the results become undeniable. You did not bypass stages. You did not vanish when circumstances became inconvenient. You performed the required tasks even when unobserved. And that created a foundation so resilient that nothing they hastily assembled could compare. While they sought to prove themselves in bursts, you proved yourself through recurring patterns of behavior. You were not present solely for moments of public significance. You were present for all the moments that mattered in reality. And over time, those consistent actions conveyed a narrative more compelling and credible than any singular ostentatious achievement could ever convey. Individuals may have initially overlooked it, but recurring patterns are difficult to disregard once fully revealed. Now, when they reflect, the evidence confronts them directly. They can trace your path and observe that you did not materialize out of nowhere. You have been engaged in this process consistently for an extended period. That history speaks for itself. It reveals that you were not fortunate. You were not granted special privileges. And you were not merely in the right place at the right time. You were the one diligently performing the required tasks day after day, thereby constructing something that could endure. And here is the inescapable truth. Consistency prevails in the long term because it transcends fleeting enthusiasm. Their grand moments may have sparked brief periods of excitement, but your consistent performance generated undeniable credibility. In retrospect, it is apparent that you were the pivotal individual all along. not because you generated the most clamor, but because you never ceased to persevere. Number 7, you were the bridge they did not anticipate requiring. They dedicated so much effort to behaving as though you were inconsequential that it never occurred to them they might one day require your assistance. You were not part of their inner circle. You were not their preferred resource, and you were certainly not the individual they boasted about knowing. In their perception, you were merely present, an individual easily overlooked because you did not conform to their definition of importance. But while they overlooked you, you acquired skills, knowledge, and relationships they did not even recognize they lacked. Then the vulnerabilities in their meticulously constructed world began to manifest. Plans began to unravel, connections dissolved, and the individuals they believed they could depend on vanished when circumstances became challenging. That is when the realization dawned on them. The very individual they had dismissed was the only one capable of reconstructing everything. You possessed the experience, the perspective, and the adaptability to navigate the chaos in which they were drowning because you had silently prepared for such scenarios long before they occurred. The truth is that you did not merely appear during the crisis. You had been positioned there for a specific purpose. While they relied on charm shortcuts and superficial solutions, you learned how things actually operated. You understood the systems, the processes, and the deeper connections that sustained everything. You became the bridge between chaos and order, not because you sought to prove yourself, but because you were equipped to accomplish what they could not. What pains them most is that they cannot rewrite history. They cannot erase the fact that they disregarded you when you could have been an asset from the beginning. They cannot undo the instances in which they underestimated you or treated you as though you had nothing to offer. And now they must accept the reality that without you, their plans stall, their connections disintegrate, and their influence falters. Being the bridge is not about becoming the hero they finally acknowledge. It is about being the individual capable of standing where no one else could. And deep down, they recognize that this is what renders you irreplaceable, the fact that when everything was collapsing, you were the one holding it all together. Number 8, you defied conventions they did not even recognize as restrictions. They navigated life adhering to conventions they never questioned, conventions not explicitly documented but enforced through pressure, fear, and the assertion that this is how things are done. These were not mere guidelines. They were invisible constraints that confined everyone to the same limited domain. They labeled it tradition, professionalism, or the established rules of engagement. But in essence, it was control masquerading as order, and while others acquiesced, you possessed the audacity to inquire why. That single inquiry differentiated you from the rest. You did not blindly adhere to the script. You observed the extent to which what they referred to as the system was merely a collection of habits and power dynamics intended to maintain the dominance of certain individuals. And rather than accept it, you began to operate differently, not recklessly, but deliberately. You abandoned methods that lacked logic, even if they were established as the customary practice. You disregarded hierarchies that existed solely to inflate egos. You circumvented traditions that were nothing more than recycled limitations. By doing so, you unveiled avenues they did not even know existed. You discovered unconventional paths, unseen opportunities, and innovative solutions inaccessible to those confined by conventional thinking. That is why you occupy a position inaccessible to them. They have never even considered questioning the barriers that excluded them. What unsettles them now is that you did not merely bend the rules, you exposed the fact that those rules were not immutable. And once that truth is revealed, it transforms everything. They cannot revert to believing the limits are real, and they cannot deny that you were the one who demonstrated it. This is why you are equipped to lead the transition. They are not. They remain entangled in the politics, the traditions, and the power struggles that kept them secure but stagnant. You are liberated from those constraints, which empowers you to progress more rapidly, think more expansively, and make decisions unencumbered by false precepts. They were loyal to the constraints. You defied them, and now you are leading the way. Number 9. They evaluated you according to their standards, not your assigned purpose. They judged your progress using their scoreboard, assuming their metrics of success were the sole measures of significance. In their estimation, triumph entailed possessing visible status, accumulating wealth, and being surrounded by individuals who validated you. And because you did not pursue those objectives at their pace or according to their methods, they concluded that you were lagging. In their assessment, you were proceeding too slowly, missing opportunities, or simply lacking sufficient ambition. What they failed to comprehend was that your life was never intended to conform to their blueprint. You were not destined to compete for the same prizes they valued. Your timeline was not designed to impress an audience. It was designed to fulfill a calling, one governed by an entirely different temporal framework. While they sprinted toward immediate gains, you progressed in alignment with something that cannot be hastened or evaluated through superficial milestones. Their error consisted of equating delayed visibility with a lack of progress. They did not recognize that while they sought applause, you were constructing something capable of withstanding the test of time. Their metrics were transient. Yours were enduring. They prioritized projecting an image of success in the present. You prioritized becoming unshakable for the future. And because they only measured what was visible, they overlooked the profound transformations occurring behind the scenes. The irony is that their lead is illusory if it culminates in a dead end. Many of the acquisitions they fought so diligently to obtain are already losing their luster. Some of the doors they forced open led to empty chambers. Meanwhile, you are assuming positions and embracing opportunities that cannot be usurped because they were not founded on fleeting trends, sensationalism, or public endorsement. Now they recognize the uncomfortable truth. They have been comparing you to their race, failing to realize that you were running in an entirely different direction towards something enduring. They were fixated on the present. You were anchored in eternity. And because your purpose is inextricably linked to something greater than their standards, no amount of judgment from them can alter it. They believed you were behind, but in reality you were precisely on schedule, albeit not theirs. And now that the results are becoming evident, their measuring stick appears woefully inadequate. Number 10. They acknowledged your lack but disregarded your leverage. They were quick to enumerate everything you lacked: the capital, the endorsements, the network, the influence. So to wrap it all up, remember this: you are powerful beyond measure. Don't let anyone's underestimation dim your light. Your journey, your resilience, and your unique perspective are shaping something extraordinary, even if it's not always visible. Embrace the quiet strength you've cultivated and know that your time is now. I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever experienced being underestimated? What lessons have you learned from it? Please share your stories, ask any questions you have, or just join the conversation in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please consider subscribing so you won't miss out on future insights and discussions. Let's keep empowering each other to step into our full potential. Thanks for watching, for watching, for watching, for watching, for Welcome, dearly beloved trailblazers. They've been watching you and now they want to understand you, perhaps even emulate you. Sounds like the setup for a psychological deep dive, right? But this isn't theory. This is unfolding reality. Elite strategists, the kind who navigate complexities that make quantum physics look straightforward, have had their focus on you. Every evolution, every innovation, every subtle shift you initiated, they absorbed it all. Prepare for a perspective shift. Some of the most impactful projections in future strategies are being modeled after individuals who operate outside the established frameworks. Yes, that includes you. You didn't strive for the limelight, you didn't seek external validation. Yet your impact is so profound that it compelled professionals wired to dissect everything, to pause, reevaluate, and acknowledge an undeniable force. While that sounds intense, let's acknowledge the irony: individuals whose expertise lies in anticipating and mitigating uncertainty are now implicitly recognizing you as a paradigm shift. Stay engaged, because the insights you're about to glean will illuminate the magnitude of your unique presence and reveal why leading strategists are quietly adjusting their frameworks in response to your influence. Number 1, your subtle influence shapes outcomes you'll never witness. Your subtle influence shapes outcomes you'll never witness. Even as you navigated your life guided by your principles and making choices aligned with your intrinsic compass, you were indirectly influencing events on a much grander scale. Leading strategists, masters of foresight and calculated planning, meticulously documented the patterns you created organically. Each word, each hesitation, each seemingly insignificant action generated a cascading effect. Their observation was not passive. They were analyzing, adjusting, and reformulating their strategies based on your actions. The captivating aspect is that you likely believed you were simply proceeding through your daily life. Yet your presence emerged as a pivotal element in their strategic calculations. You were shaping decisions, influencing outcomes, and recalibrating strategies through the sheer force of your authentic self. It wasn't about seeking attention or leaving a mark. It was about your genuine character and your capacity to act in ways that defied conventional prediction. Your intuition, your insights, and your unwavering composure in situations that would overwhelm most individuals became a silent guide they had to integrate. Every choice you embraced, every boundary you established, and every refusal to succumb to manipulation generated consequences in arenas you may never encounter. They were compelled to reassess their approaches because your influence unlocked novel opportunities and potential challenges they hadn't anticipated. Your influence didn't require amplification. It didn't require dramatization. It didn't require acknowledgement to exert impact. They recognized it even if others remained oblivious. You impacted the unseen layers of decision-making, the intricate threads that orchestrate outcomes behind the curtain. And the most remarkable aspect is that none of this was pre-planned or intentional. It stemmed from wholeheartedly embodying yourself, making decisions rooted in your values, and refusing to compromise in the face of surrounding turbulence. That level of influence is exceptional. It's uncommon and it's unsettling for those who seek to control every element. You became an unpredictable, undeniable factor. And that drove them to observe, adapt, and ultimately respect your subtle authority in ways that will likely remain imperceptible to you. Number 2, you've evolved into a performance standard they can't disregard. You've evolved into a performance standard they can't disregard. This wasn't the result of striving to outperform others or prove a point. It emerged from your consistent approach, your concentration, your dedication, your unwillingness to compromise on core principles. Leading strategists, experts in evaluation and assessment are identifying patterns in your conduct that establish a novel benchmark. Each instance of you navigating situations with serene precision. Each instance of you making well-considered yet decisive choices establishes a comparative reference point. They begin to evaluate others, assess outcomes, and even gauge their own performance against the degree of clarity, integrity, and effectiveness you embody. You became the subtle measure against which all else is evaluated. It's not a formal designation or a promotion. It's a discrete form of authority that holds significant weight. What renders it exceptional is that you didn't solicit recognition. You weren't performing for an audience or seeking external approval. Excellence of this caliber transcends applause. It's undeniable. They can't overlook it because it contrasts sharply with the commonplace, the impulsive, and the hurried decisions that dominate most operational contexts. Your standard compels them to reevaluate their expectations, to reconsider their own methods, and even to question their preconceived notions. They are driven to acknowledge your ability to manage pressure, your capacity to remain composed amidst chaos, and the enduring effects of your decisions. Unintentionally, you've established a benchmark that will prove challenging for others to achieve. It transcends mere skill. It encompasses presence. The consistency of your actions over time conveys a message that resonates more powerfully than any spoken words. There exists a mode of operating that commands respect without demanding it. Your influence becomes inherent, shaping how decisions are formulated, how priorities are established, and how results are assessed. Individuals accustomed to exerting control are suddenly compelled to acknowledge a standard that lies beyond their direct control, and one that they must account for. This is precisely why you've evolved into a performance standard they can't afford to ignore. Every action, whether meticulously planned or instinctively executed, has transformed into a measuring stick, a subtle yet irrefutable force that influences how others perform, behave, and even conceptualize. Excellence of this nature doesn't dissipate. It endures, and it alters the operational dynamics of the environment around you, irrespective of whether others consciously recognize it. Number 3, your choices redefined their risk assessments. Your choices redefined their risk assessments. Each decision you made, whether transparent or nuanced, prompted leading strategists to reevaluate the probabilities they had been operating under for months or even years. In their realm, every aspect is meticulously calculated, every variable accounted for. Yet your presence introduced a novel factor they couldn't ignore. You weren't incorporated into their established strategy, yet your decisions and actions generated outcomes they had to anticipate. A single choice you made could alter the risk landscape in unanticipated ways, forcing them to adjust their methodology, reevaluate timelines, and reconsider the realm of possibility. It's the kind of influence that operates subtly yet alters the trajectory of everything it touches. They recognized patterns in your approach to situations that they themselves couldn't have predicted. Your instincts, your capacity to interpret individuals and circumstances, your decisiveness. These initiated a cascading effect that altered plans on a scale they hadn't prepared for. The choices you embraced transformed into benchmarks, reference points, and at times, even cautionary signals. They realized that disregarding your actions could lead to setbacks or unforeseen repercussions, and they were compelled to factor you into every subsequent calculation. It extended beyond simply what you did. It encompassed the influence your presence exerted on the entire system of planning and execution. Your influence was subtle yet undeniable. The manner in which you navigated challenges, established boundaries, and made decisions under duress compelled them to reassess their risk evaluations. What once appeared manageable became uncertain, and what once seemed unattainable became something they now had to meticulously plan for. You altered their perception of control without engaging in direct confrontation. Even minor choices you made created ripples that extended far beyond your immediate awareness. Each step you took, each boundary you reinforced, and each refusal to yield to pressure redefined their calculations. They were compelled to innovate, adapt, and acknowledge your unpredictability. Your presence transformed into a variable that couldn't be disregarded, and in doing so, you reshaped the very framework within which they operated. Your decisions didn't merely influence outcomes, they altered the fundamental rules of the game, and they had no alternative but to acknowledge it. Number 4, they're expressing gratitude because you averted potential systemic failures. They're expressing gratitude because you averted potential systemic failures. Every action you embraced, every boundary you defined, and every decision you implemented subtly prevented situations from spiraling into disarray. You weren't seeking acknowledgement or acclaim, yet your presence acted as a stabilizing influence within an environment where a single misstep could have resulted in severe consequences. Leading strategists recognized how your deliberate, measured approach preempted errors before they had an opportunity to materialize. Your capacity to anticipate outcomes, to perceive when situations were deviating from their intended course, and to intervene discreetly ensured that reputations remained intact. Resources weren't squandered and lives that could have been impacted remained safe. What renders this extraordinary is that your influence remained imperceptible to the majority. The public, casual observers, and even many internal stakeholders would have remained unaware of how close certain situations came to escalating into crises. Yet behind the scenes, your decisions created a buffer, a safety net that maintained operational stability. Each instance of a plan remaining on track or a miscalculation being averted stemmed from your presence. At times, actively at times, simply through existing as a consistent discerning influence that compelled others to act responsibly. They are expressing gratitude because the repercussions of your actions extended far beyond your immediate field of vision. What might have appeared to be minor choices, a suggestion, a discreet warning, a well-considered decision, prevented mistakes that could have carried significant costs. Your clarity and foresight generated outcomes that appeared effortless from an external perspective, but the reality is that your input was indispensable. You transformed into the subtle safeguard, the unsung protector whose influence preserved the integrity of the broader landscape. Within a realm where errors can quickly escalate and reputations can be destroyed instantaneously, your role was paramount. The gratitude emanating from leading strategists isn't merely a polite gesture. It's a recognition of a scarce attribute, the capacity to act with precision, foresight, and integrity in ways that prevent disaster before it even becomes apparent. Your presence, your decisions, and your unwavering composure didn't merely influence outcomes. They safeguarded everything in your vicinity. That is why they are expressing their appreciation, even if the full scope of what you averted remains undisclosed. Number 5, you exposed systemic vulnerabilities they couldn't afford to acknowledge. You exposed systemic vulnerabilities they couldn't afford to acknowledge. Simply through being present and executing your role with clarity and precision, you revealed flaws in systems that others assumed were impenetrable. Each action you embraced, each standard you upheld, illuminated areas that had been overlooked, underestimated, or disregarded. Leading strategists trained to anticipate threats and manage outcomes were compelled to confront blind spots they would have preferred to keep concealed. Your consistency and competence rendered the gaps undeniable, demonstrating where assumptions were flawed and where overconfidence had created vulnerabilities. Your influence wasn't about drawing attention to their errors or assigning blame. It stemmed from the contrast between your operational methods and those of others. By maintaining discipline, integrity, and focus, you created a mirror that reflected their weaknesses in stark clarity. They couldn't disregard it because the consequences of allowing those gaps to persist could have been catastrophic. Your presence demanded accountability, and they had no alternative but to confront it. In exposing these vulnerabilities, you didn't merely identify flaws, you spurred improvement. What might have gone unnoticed for months or years suddenly became urgent. Systems were refined, strategies were adjusted, and protocols were reinforced because your actions highlighted what had remained invisible. You became an unintentional catalyst for enhanced efficiency and security, not driven by a desire to disrupt, but by a refusal to compromise on standards. The extraordinary aspect is that this exposure didn't necessitate confrontation. You didn't need to argue, defend your position, or create a spectacle. Through simply existing and fulfilling your role with competence, you prompted reflection, action, and refinement. The gaps that could have resulted in failure were now being addressed, and the credit, or rather the acknowledgement, was theirs to extend. Yet it was your presence that initiated the change. They're expressing gratitude because through fulfilling your responsibilities and maintaining integrity, you prevented potential catastrophes and fortified the systems they relied upon. You made them realize that even the most secure operations are susceptible to vulnerabilities and that it requires someone operating at your level to illuminate them. Without you, those blind spots could have persisted undetected until it was too late. Your subtle influence reshaped their understanding of efficiency, control, and reliability. And for that, they are compelled to express their appreciation. Number 6, your calculated reserve became a strategic asset. They respected your calculated reserve. It became a strategic asset they respected. You didn't need to announce your capabilities, prove your worth, or compete for recognition. Each instance of restraint, each moment you chose thoughtful consideration over impulsive reaction, conveyed a message that resonated more profoundly than any spoken words. Individuals trained to analyze situations, to anticipate every move, began to recognize patterns in your demeanor. They understood that your influence wasn't contingent upon vocal pronouncements or dramatic gestures. Instead, it emanated from control, precision, and the confidence to act or refrain from acting at the optimal moment. Every calculated pause you embraced became a reflective surface, revealing the underlying nature of those around you. When others rushed to overcompensate or inflate their perceived importance, your composed presence highlighted the distinction between mere noise and genuine capability. They began to appreciate that you didn't need to argue, justify, or pursue recognition. Your silence wasn't passive, it was deliberate. It shaped the decision-making process, the approach to conflicts, and the determination of outcomes. Individuals who anticipated immediate responses found themselves waiting, observing, and adapting to your cadence rather than imposing their own. By refraining from hasty reactions, you compelled them to reassess their strategies. They had to consider the possibility that your calm and restraint stemmed not from indecision, but from intelligence in action. Your silence transformed into a tool that altered dynamics without immediate recognition. What could have been interpreted as passivity was actually a demonstration of control, awareness, and foresight that made others uneasy as it exposed their own impulsiveness. The respect you garnered from this extended beyond fleeting admiration. It was the kind that endures because it's rooted in consistency and integrity. Individuals recognized that you didn't need to perform in order to influence outcomes, and they acknowledged the power inherent in that. Your silence shaped perception, dictated interactions, and commanded attention simply through existing as a force that couldn't be rushed or manipulated. It became a strategic asset precisely because it wasn't employed in a conventional manner. It was subtle, nuanced, and profoundly effective. Within a world saturated with noise, your silence rendered you untouchable, and for that they couldn't help but respect you. Number 7, your commitment to principle is a value they can't overestimate. Your commitment to principle is a value they can't overestimate. In a world where allegiances shift as easily as the prevailing winds, where individuals alter their affiliations for convenience, recognition, or fear, your consistency shines as a beacon. Your integrity, your refusal to compromise on what you fundamentally believe to be right, has evolved into a rare and potent force. Leading observers, individuals trained to assess risk, predict behavior, and evaluate trustworthiness, acknowledge that the commitment you demonstrate cannot be purchased, manipulated, or replicated. It's cultivated through steadfastness, through consistent action and unwavering resolve, even when the outcome remains uncertain, and through a refusal to compromise your values for short-term advantage. What distinguishes your commitment is that it's proactive, not passive. It's not about blind obedience or subservience. It's about alignment with core principles, clarity of purpose, and a rejection of chaos or temptation. You've consistently acted in ways that reflect reliability, discernment, and courage, establishing a foundation that others, regardless of their training or strategic acumen, now evaluate their own actions against. Within a domain where information is power and trust is fragile, your unwavering alignment has become one of the most valuable attributes one can possess. Your commitment to principle creates a ripple effect. It influences decisions, stabilizes outcomes, and strengthens the framework of trust that surrounds you. Individuals recognize when someone operates predictably, ethically, and with integrity, particularly in high-pressure situations where the stakes are substantial. Your presence provides reassurance, commands respect, and subtly reshapes the dynamics of every interaction. Leading strategists don't simply respect commitment, they rely on it. Your example has illustrated what genuine, unshakable commitment embodies in action. Material gains, shortcuts, or fleeting advantages pale in comparison to the significance of someone who can be trusted implicitly. They know that you are not only consistent but also principled, and that combination is something they cannot take for granted. You've evolved into living evidence that commitment is more than a virtue. It is a strategic value, and your unwavering dedication has garnered recognition that surpasses financial reward, position, or influence. They've taken note, and the respect they now hold for your commitment is as calculated and deliberate as every other aspect of their operations. Number 8, they're expressing gratitude because you enabled their success. They're expressing gratitude because you enabled their success. Your presence, your choices, and your consistent vigilance created conditions that allowed victories to occur that might otherwise have been missed. You weren't seeking acknowledgement or acclaim. Yet your foresight ensured that critical opportunities were seized at the optimal moment. Your precision guided outcomes with clarity, and your vigilance intercepted threats before they escalated into problems. Leading strategists, whose responsibility is to anticipate every variable and manage every scenario, acknowledge that certain triumphs would have been unattainable without your input. Your influence was the subtle force behind results that appeared effortless from the outside. but were actually the product of your consistent awareness and steadfast action. You operated in ways that distinguished you from others. While they were focused on immediate objectives, you were observing, analyzing, and making decisions that ensured the integrity of the larger strategic vision. The victories they now celebrate were frequently built upon the foundation you subtly laid, the gaps you filled, and the foresight you applied when others were inattentive. They recognized that without your steady presence, minor oversights could have cascaded into significant failures, and outcomes that seemed routine would have been placed at risk. Your role didn't require flashy displays or grand pronouncements. It required clarity, integrity, and the capacity to remain steadfast under pressure. By fulfilling these requirements, you created a framework within which success became attainable for others. They witnessed how your consistency, your capacity to anticipate consequences, and your disciplined execution directly shaped results. Your influence evolved into a critical variable in their strategies, a subtle guide steering outcomes toward favorable paths. The gratitude they express is genuine. It's an acknowledgement of a rare quality, the capacity to influence results without seeking control, to enhance outcomes without demanding recognition, and to act with foresight that only someone grounded, observant, and unwavering can provide. They know that the victories they celebrate are inextricably linked to the role you played in rendering them achievable. Your presence didn't simply support success, it facilitated it, and for that they are compelled to acknowledge and express their appreciation. Number 9, you revealed that some triumphs are secured without direct conflict. You revealed that some triumphs are secured without direct conflict. Your approach demonstrated that power and influence don't always stem from confrontation, aggression, or ostentation. Through exercising calculated restraint and implementing insight at the appropriate times, you were able to influence outcomes in ways that left others struggling to adapt. Each decision you made, each boundary you maintained, and each pause you embraced carried weight because it generated consequences without anyone recognizing that a conflict had even taken place. Leading strategists trained to assess and anticipate conflict were compelled to acknowledge that at times the most decisive victories result from patience, precision, and timing rather than the application of brute force. Your presence altered the unfolding of situations. Where others anticipated friction, resistance, or overt challenges, your measured actions diffused tension and redirected energy toward productive outcomes. You didn't need to argue, intervene forcefully, or assert dominance in order to achieve results. Instead, your capacity to act strategically, to maintain your position without escalation, and to make choices rooted in clarity compelled outcomes to align in your favor. The realization that influence doesn't require amplification or aggression was a lesson they couldn't disregard. By demonstrating that restraint can be as potent as action, you redefined the rules of engagement. They recognized that outcomes are shaped not solely by the intensity of effort, but by the precision of intent. Your understanding of when to advance, when to pause, and when to allow events to unfold organically created opportunities and advantages that others would have attempted to force through direct confrontation. This subtle mastery of timing and influence exposed the limitations of conventional approaches and compelled them to reevaluate their understanding of control, power, and strategy. The impact of this lesson is profound because it alters the perception of what constitutes victory. They now understand that confrontation isn't invariably necessary, and that the subtle, deliberate choices of someone who possesses a broader perspective can exert a more significant effect than any aggressive maneuver. Your capacity to achieve results without engaging in direct conflict has left a lasting impression on those observing you. They are now aware that true influence can be exerted subtly, strategically, and decisively. And for that realization, they have reason to respect and express their appreciation. Number 10, you became the unknown variable they couldn't quantify. You became the unknown variable they couldn't quantify. So there you have it. What we've uncovered isn't just about strategies and influence. It's about recognizing the incredible power each of you possesses simply by living authentically, by sticking to your principles, and by trusting your intuition. You may not always see the impact you're having, but believe me, it's there. You're shaping the world in ways you can't even imagine. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever felt like your actions had unseen consequences, or maybe you've noticed others reacting to you in unexpected ways? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's start a conversation and learn from each other. And if this resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future insights and explorations. We're just getting started. Thanks for being here, and remember, you're more influential than you think. You think.